Welcome to Project Honeycomb. In today's session, we're going to discuss the content and upload and migration strategy for Sibanye Stillwater content from your current SharePoint 2016 environment and file drives into the new SharePoint 2019 and SharePoint Online environments. We'll be covering the content management strategy, both the challenges experienced in the current space, as well as the new content management model and how that model hopes to address those challenges going forward. We'll be taking an overview of metadata, its definitions, and its everyday use. Then we'll be discussing metadata and how SharePoint uses metadata in content types to make your life a lot easier. And finally, we'll be closing off with a demo of a bulk upload from the existing environment into a new SharePoint site. So let's get cracking. Let's start with the content management strategy. The biggest problem with the current environment is basically that you have content everywhere. Content is unstructured. It is stored in largely folder-based environments, which are rigid, difficult to change, difficult to update and move with the company at large as the company changes. Content is uncategorized to a large extent, which means it's difficult to search on. It's difficult to find something once it is in that structure. And those deep folder structures tend to become a bit of a black hole. So you can upload content just fine, but finding content again becomes very difficult. And especially when you're dealing with content uploaded by someone who's already left. And they have perhaps left the company, and you need to retrieve content that they uploaded and their structures might not make sense. Also, managing permissions and access in the current environment because of the deep folder structures is very difficult and very time consuming. And mistakes happen. So in order to minimize the amount of mistakes that could happen from a permissions perspective and the impact that would have on governance, things like the POPI regulations that are soon to go live. In order to get past all of those hurdles, Sibanye Stillwater is moving to a new model, moving from the heavy folder-based structures, which are not future-proof and not easy to manage given the new governance requirements, to a SharePoint-based model, which is metadata-based and uses structured data to manage content and ensure that you can not only find things when they are uploaded, but also manage a lot of the governance functionality, which right now is difficult to do. In addition to that, the new content management model stores content in terms of function. So going forward, as the company changes with organizational structure changes and so on and so forth, the need to constantly change your SharePoint structures or your storage structures is reduced because of the fact that content is stored functionally instead of according to a reporting structure or hierarchy. So let's move into metadata. I do realize that by now you have heard about metadata in your training sessions, and you're probably a little tired of the subject by now, but it is important to recap at this point. So metadata is typically described as information about information. It's information about the document you're uploading, and the information attached to that document allows us to classify that document in specific ways. So, for instance, in this example, we might have a top-level classification called equipment. And within that, we might have a subsection of classifications called PPE. Inside of that, we might have eye protection and head protection. And inside of those, we would find items stored that relate to those categories. Metadata essentially is the classification process. And it's the kind of thing that tends to actually, when people first meet metadata, it tends to frustrate them a little because it feels so foreign. But what people don't understand is that you use metadata every day. You classify things every day as you move through your life. And it's the kind of thing that actually comes quite naturally to humans. So perhaps we should look at an example of that. So let's imagine you are out grocery shopping and you need to pick up steak. And you know that you need to pick up a particular cut. You know you need to pick up a particular amount of meat. So when you arrive in the grocery store, where are you going to look for it? Are you going to go to the motor oil aisle to find your steak? Or are you going to look in the fridge? I suspect you'll probably look in the fridge. What's more, you'll probably walk to the fridge section and you'll look for a sign that says beef. And under the sign that says beef, you'll go through the shelves and you'll see one shelf is dedicated to mince, another shelf is dedicated to roasts, and another shelf is dedicated to steaks. And you're going to pick up your steak from the steak shelf in the beef fridge in the chilled section of the grocery store. You have just used metadata to classify the process of buying your steak. So when I take my steak home, I now have a bunch of things that I know about my steak. So I'll arrive home and there are properties around my steak that will tell me how I need to treat my steak going forward. For instance, I could say that my steak belongs in a main category that says food, fresh food, meat, beef. From the fact that my steak is classified as fresh food, I can assume that there will be a shelf life tied to it, and that shelf life will depend on specific variables. So I will make a point of checking the sell-by date on my pack to see by when I need to use my steak. In addition to that, I will know that because it's fresh food, it probably needs to be chilled, so I'll keep it in the fridge instead of putting it outside on the porch and hoping for better days. There are many other kinds of metadata around my steak that I may potentially be able to pick up. But the most important ones for me at this point, the ones that carry the most weight in my current environment, are the fact that it is fresh food, meat, beef, the fact that it has a shelf life, the fact that it needs to be stored in a chilled environment. And that your content management is precisely the same. There is a great deal of metadata that can be picked up from every document that you deal with. But there will be specific metadata that's important from a structural perspective and from a governance perspective, and other information that may be interesting but less important. So when we upload our documents, we make sure that the required content, the main category, the shelf life, the sell-by date, the storage requirements, we make sure that those are completed, and the rest are completed if they seem valid in that case, but they are not required fields. So, moving on. With an idea of what metadata is and how we use it in our real lives, let's talk very briefly about how SharePoint uses metadata and how SharePoint implements metadata in content types and how that helps you. So, let's start off by looking at how SharePoint manages metadata. If we look at the left-hand side of the screen, we can see a bunch of columns that have been created, site column 1, 2, and 3, and those are pulled together into a package called a content type. So for instance, I might have a content type called meeting documents. And for meeting documents, I might use a site column called document type, which would give me minutes, agendas, etc. I may have a column called meeting date, which will tell me the date of the meeting rather than the day the document was uploaded. I may have a column dedicated to the attendees list, for instance, and so on and so forth. That content, those columns, are pulled together into that single content type called a meeting document, and is then made available to every site in SharePoint to reuse in their libraries. Now, how that site uses that content type is very much up to the site in question. One team might have a single library for meeting documents and just keep all the documents from all their meetings in one library. The next site may decide that the content, the volume of content is too big and they may decide to split out their meeting content. Or perhaps there's a security requirement that says my management meetings mustn't be stored with the rest of my meetings, in which case I'll have more than one library for meeting documents, but they're all still meeting documents. And SharePoint will recognize those as meeting documents and will manage those documents based on the rules that are set up for management, which makes maintenance on a global scale far easier, far less time consuming, and leaves you free to actually do your day job in a lot of ways. Right, so we're on to the demo. Right, so the purpose of the bulk upload and tag process is to move content that is relevant going forward from your old environment to your new environment and to tag it as you go. So obviously the first move is to navigate to a library that contains content you want to move. In this case, I am in the corporate stationery library for this particular site. And I can see I have a bunch of templates that I'm going to upload and content like that. So I'm going to be working with this content. Now, how on earth do I get from here to my new space? If you are using Internet Explorer, you can simply come through to the ribbon along the top, click on Library, and you'll be able to access the Open with Explorer option. Now, that allows you to open this particular library in Windows Explorer mode temporarily and manage content as if it were a Windows Explorer piece of content. Problem is that the vast majority of us do not have access to Internet Explorer anymore because of the fact that it has been discontinued. So for those of us who don't have this little quick move into Windows Explorer, how do we get there? I have the library open on another browser. I'm using Edge, but the same rule goes with any other browser that you might be using. I'm in the library. I'm in the same page where I was in the Internet Explorer browser. If I look in my library ribbon, I can see Open with Explorer is grayed out, which is what we were expecting to see. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat. I'm going to come into this URL, the address bar at the top of my browser, and I'm going to select the path. Now I'm going to select the whole path to my site. I'm going to select the name of my library, and I'm going to stop there. I'm not going to select the section that says /forms and everything that follows. I'm only going to go up to the /forms. That's the only bit of the URL that I need. And I'm going to copy that. Right, now that that is copied, I'm going to open Windows Explorer, and I'm going to paste that URL into Windows Explorer and hit enter. There we go. I can see my library contents as it displays on the site, but in Windows Explorer mode, which is extremely handy for what we're going to do next. So now that we've got this open, let's hop over to the new space. Right, so when we get to the new space, you'll see a pretty landing page with some interesting links on. If you look along the top navigation, you will see a menu full of business units, and whoopsie, I wasn't supposed to do that. Let's go back. As you navigate through the business units, you'll find the business unit that you belong to, and you will navigate your way from there. And let's open this one as an example. When you get to your site, you will have a documents item in your navigation where you'll be able to see all the libraries that are available to your space at this stage. Now, obviously, these are not cast in stone. Some will be removed, some will be added over time, but this is how you get to your libraries. Now, let's pop back. Oops, gone too far. All right, so we are in the library that we're going to upload to. I have chosen the stationery library on the site in question that I want to upload to. And I'm going to move content from my old corporate stationery library into my new library. So I'm going to look through this content and I'm going to pick which of this information I am going to move across. In this case, I'm going to take the Sibanye gold documents and I'm going to move them across. Now, I would highly, highly recommend that as you do your moves, as you pick up your bulk documents, and you can move large volumes at once. You know, I routinely move 100 documents at once. It's not like you are tied to 5 documents or so at a time. You can move multiples. But I highly suggest that you move content in batches where the metadata is likely to be the same, because it makes the bulk upload and the bulk update process much simpler if you only have one piece of metadata to fill in. So we're going to select these documents and we're going to drag and drop. And I can see the upload starting to run from here. And while that's running, I can also see the structure that's been set up in this particular view starting to build out. I can see content is grouped by business area, and I can see underneath that it's grouped by document type. But right now those tags are not filled in. And yes, I can go and fill in these one by one from my document properties if I so choose. But honestly, that would just take forever, and I prefer not to do that. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to open my views and I'm going to jump over to my untagged items view. Now, what the untagged items view does is it shows you all the documents you've literally just uploaded, and it gives you the option to tag these in bulk. So I'm going to click on this option that says edit in grid view. There we go. And now I have a grid much like Excel that I can use to fill content in. Now, as I said before, I highly recommend that the information is that you move content across in batches where the metadata is the same, and this is why. I can now go to this first document and I can tag it. So in this case, these are gold documents. So under area, I can select gold. For environments that require more detail than that, obviously, you know, you can keep going down the tree and you can find the part of the structure that's relevant to you. But in this case, these are templates that are valid for all of gold, or possibly all of gold South Africa. I'm going to make it gold. And I'm just going to tag it there. The options I am allowed to use will show in this tree, and anything I'm not allowed to use in this context, or that doesn't fit this context, will be hidden from this tree. So I don't need to worry about choosing the wrong thing too often. Usually what I have available to look at is exactly what I need. So I'm going to say okay. Now, if I already know what the value is, I can just type it. So in this case, let's do that with this next. Well, actually, no. Let's pick this, and then we'll go back and we'll show you one where I just type in the value. So for governance, for this document type, this is going to be a document template. So I can open this, and I can see in my governance documents that I can only pick from governance documents to use. And I'm going to pick templates. And I think I'm going to pick this one for these. That should work nicely. And I've updated the area and the document type for this one. I can go and input an applicable date as well. So in other words, what is the valid date for this document? Not the date it was uploaded, not the date it was last modified, but the date it became valid. In the case of minutes, for instance, you would say the date the document became valid is the date of the meeting, and so on and so forth. So I can change that if I so choose. I can fill in the document owner, I'm going to make myself the document owner in this case. I'm going to set a sensitivity label to, let's say, company confidential, and my alignment status is aligned. Right, so I have tagged the first document, and obviously I have taken it quite slowly because we are in demonstration mode. But what I can now do is I can select this row and I can fill down and fill in and tag bunches of documents at once. Not only can I do a fill down, I can also select, copy, Control C, and then paste over a large set of documents like that. So I can say Control V, paste, which is immensely handy if you're staring at 200 documents, believe you me. Right, so I have tagged all the documents that I've now carried across in the bulk upload. And if I now go back to my Documents view and I refresh this, I can see that these documents have been assigned to gold and they've been marked as document templates and they're ready to go. Now, the structure and exactly how this content is laid out will differ from library to library based on what that library is used for. But I also have the option to create as many views as I want. So if I don't like this particular layout, maybe I want to group by document type and then area, I can create personal views to do that with. The important thing is that those documents need to be tagged in order for me to do that. But that is the entire process of uploading content in bulk and tagging in bulk. I hope this has been helpful. Take care. See you soon.